Hello guys, so today we're going to talk about 2.1 banner, and then we'll see which unit is worth it for you and which is pretty skippable for you. Let's prepare by comparing their pros and cons and see if anybody actually fits that criteria of your account. All right, make sure that you always see the pros and cons and then compare it to your account, which one you need, which one you're not needing in your account, etc. Okay, except for if you're chasing for husband or wife. Okay, that's something different. So yeah, let's talk about it and start from Okiran. So this girl, from let's start from the pros. Okay, let's start from the pros. This girl can one shot minions wave with her technique, which is insane in my opinion. That's already like saving your time. It also applies on simulated universe as well, but it doesn't work on bosses, right? So if you use it on bosses, you get stacks instead, but if you actually do it on minion, it actually one shot. Not to mention, like, if you use the technique and then you don't hit anything, it doesn't decrease your technique point as well, which is one of the best technique I've ever seen in the game. And yeah, that's already a pro in my opinion. And then next is possibly huge damage on ultimate. Um, this girl hits 4 times in her ult, and for the first 3 hits you actually can control the target you want, and I think it actually helps you to remove this crimson stacks on the enemy. So let's say there are 3 enemies in the field, right? And then all of them got full stack of crimsons. You can always use your targeted ultimate for to all of the targets, and then um, the fourth slashes will actually deals more damage. I think that's how it works, but still waiting for an official kit though. But I think this is one of the best ultimate you can use, except for that it actually takes longer time. Like you don't use it automatically, right? You can actually target it, but that's only if it's you're on a strategized kind of gameplay. You know what I mean? Like you're targeting for maximus damage, or else I think you can just use alt auto it, because the fourth hit gonna hit everybody anyway. So yeah, I think that's another pro for Acheron. Next is if you don't have lightning damage or lightning DPS, you know what I mean? You can always pull out for Acheron for that sense. Mainly if you don't have Kafka Black Sun kind of combo like DOT one. Kafka is pretty amazing. As DPS, I mean, even as the function of DOT, I'm actually amazed by the damage Kafka can do. Now that she actually can combo with Black Swan, that's pretty insane as well, considering Black Swan actually have defense decrease, which is a debuff for Acheron as well, right? Not to mention as well, you actually can combine Acheron with this DOT team because they're both nihility, like the Kafka and Black Sun, right? That synergize with Acheron's. I think that was it. I think it's her talent or something that increase her damage when there's another nihility in the party or the team, which is insane, right? You can work for it. If you don't play DOT, you actually can use something like Silver Wolf or what's it called, Pala, right? They're both nihility. They can buff you and they can debuff. Silver Wolf is pretty amazing in my opinion because it can deal various amount of debuffs, right? Even from its basic attack, it has like chances to deal debuff. If you put Pala, she can also do a lot of debuffs as well. Like I think a skill gives you like two debuffs, like the ice rest and then the defense decrease, right? Which is insane. Also, for the next thing is Acheron is really viable, really pretty in design, really badass. This is outside of the mechanic or something that you need in the game. Okay. Um, as someone that actually collects waifu, I think Acheron is one of the best as well. It might be biased, guys. Okay. But again, if there's any pros, there are actually a cons as well. The first con is actually her pros as well, which needs nihility path in the party, right? At least one nihility because you want to increase the damage dealt by Acheron. But um, everybody has Pala for sure. But not everybody use DOT or probably doesn't pull for a Silver Wolf because they play pretty late or after the banner of Silver Wolf and such. The rerun was there, but I think like many people actually don't pull for her. So that's kind of the cons as well. Like it depends on your account, right? If you have those, then you probably want to pull for Acheron as well, mainly for the DPS. If you're not using the OT Kafka, right? If you have Kafka and Black Swan, I think Acheron is not necessary if you're looking for DPS, but again, it's up to you. If you can just pull for her, if you're not, then it's okay. All right. Next is it might make you feel like you dependent on Acheron a lot because you use her technique, right? It's so convenient. Just like when I use Runway, or if any of you actually use Runway, like in simulated universe, I felt like I'm so dependent on Runway. That's how fun using Runway's technique and attacking the minions, and then boom, it's just gone, you know. So I think it's a similar way, but Acheron is more OP in that sense, if that makes sense, right? Um, okay, I think that's it for. So next, we're gonna talk about Locha. Okay, Locha rerun. The pros, we're gonna talk about it. A really skill point efficient. Can auto heal you with its technique. I mean, its talent or its passive. Or, yeah, right. If your certain amount of unit actually below 50%, it actually automatically use skill on that specific target, which is pretty good. And then it has two stacks, right? If you use skill, like heal manually, or and then you use ultimate, you get two stacks. The two stacks of the talent will proc Locha's field, which can heal everybody in the team when they're attacking, which is pretty good as well. Um, as in of the heal is also huge, like the skill heal. Like it's so much heal that you probably don't need another healer or sustain in the team. Just putting Locha there. And then not to mention the field actually helps with incoming heal as well for your team, for entire team, which is really good, right? Um Locha's ultimate as also can remove buffs from the enemy, which is kind of good for support, right? Abundance that can remove buffs of the enemy. Like I think you can remove shield, you can remove like plenty of things, like their attack buffs on the bosses or something like that, which is pretty good, but really niche, right? You don't really remove buffs most of the time. You just deal debuff and then like burst the bosses right away. It's usually how you play it, but there's a niche in that kind of sense, right? Also, Lotra is really easy to build. Like you put attack, you put speed, put some little bit of HP and defense, you good. Like that's how good Lotra is. Like it's really friendly build. Like you don't really need him to build like insanely like okay 10 level 10 skill, level 10 ultimate, something like that. You don't really need that just because of the output of the healing is really good for Lucha itself. That's why I think Lucha is really easy to build, really friendly on your in terms of skill point and the gameplay as well. Pretty simple, right? And then you don't really need the LC sign for Lucha. Like he's already so good as it is. Like even without his signature Lycone. So Lucha is really good in my opinion. But there's always con, right? So what's the con of Lucha? Lucha heals scales on attack. It doesn't scales on HP like usual healer or abundance, right? So in terms of that, he heals pretty big, but he's squishy. So you probably want to put some HP on your Lucha or some defense just to make sure that he can actually take some hits, right? If it's like too much of an attack, I think the heal goes like overboard. Like you don't really need that much. Like I think around 2.5k attack is enough, like more than enough for your heal to actually feels amazing, you know. Um, so yeah, I think that's one of the con as well. Also, people now that we have Ho as abundance as well, right? People actually compare Lucha to Ho, and Ho actually gives you more benefits. Like it can heals, it can auto cleanse with the stack. It can also give you attack buff with ultimate, and then also recharge some energy while using ultimate as well, right? So Ho in that sense is kind of more beneficial. But I think for gameplay simplicity, I think you can go for Locha if you haven't get any great healer in the game. All right. Next, we're gonna go to the phase two. Phase two, we got adventuring. Right. This guy looks pretty cool in my opinion. But let's talk about the pros. Right. The pros is that adventuring is really great with skill providing. Um, the shield is also stackable, which is insane, in my opinion. But I don't know how the stacks works though. Like, does it increase the value of the shield, or it just replace the um, shield amount? But I'm not sure about the stackable. But I think it already sounds pretty amazing to sustain your team though. In that sense, I think that's one of the pro of adventuring. And then Adventuring is the only preservation that can deal follow-up damage, I think. Um, Not to mention, the follow-up attack also triggers the shield back to your team, which is a cycle. Like, as long as you use one shield skill, and then you can get 7 stacks from like AoE enemies, you actually can gain another shield by using the follow-up attack, which is pretty cycling shield. I think it's really amazing as in a sustain, but yeah, again, it depends on the amount of the shield and how the stackable shield works later on, right? Um, Also, for adventuring, like when you use ultimate, it actually can debuff the enemy. So it can gives a debuff where it increases crit damage of all allies in your team, which is kind of good, right? In a sense that it's not automatic like Fusion, where it buffs your team's crit rate like right away when she's there, right? But Aventurine can deal debuff instead, which relies on effect hit rate, which is one of the things that we don't. It's kind of pros and cons, but really, the debuff there actually helps with damage output as well. So we need to see the amount of the crit damage increase though to make sure that it's worth it or not, right? But I think for now it's actually pros because the only preservation that can deal debuff, I mean, both of them can in a way. I mean, Fusion doesn't deal debuffs, right? Jeopard can deal frozen, but that's it. Can freeze the enemy. Fire MC probably burn, but only with break and such, right? The shield is really small as well. So yeah, I think Venturine has that pros in terms of shield providing because it doesn't really relies on ultimate only, right? So yeah. And then next one is like it's husbando. If you're looking for husbando, okay? If you're not, then it doesn't apply to you. So okay, next is the cons of adventuring. So what's the cause? It's probably skill point inefficient if you're fighting a single target or any bosses that doesn't have multi attack because the stack is 7, so it takes 7 turns. It takes 7 hits or 7 turns for a Venturine to deal follow-up damage and then give you another shield if you're fighting a single target enemy, right? Which is, I don't know. I don't like the idea of that. But if you're doing AoE, then it's not a cons anymore. It becomes a pros, right? But again, it depends on the damage dealt by the enemy and the shield you provide. If you can tank the hit, that's a pros. If you cannot tank the hit, then it's still kind of a cons in my opinion. So yeah. Also, the buff from the technique, like you get various buffs, depends on the roles, right? So it's still a gamble when you use the technique, which is kind of questionable. Like, why you make it like that, you know? Like, but again, it depends on the buff it gives, though. Like, we haven't seen it, but it has potential to be Zong, I think. But if it doesn't, then it depends on the buff. Like, is it increase your attack, your defense, your max HP, or something like that? We need to see. All right, but for now, the gambling or RNG kind of aspect there is kind of cons in my opinion. Like, it becomes not as reliable as the usual technique, right? So next, we're gonna talk about Jingliu. All right. Xingliu is an amazing unit. I mean, it hasn't had plenty of like backlash so far from her release, but let's talk about it, okay? The pros for Jingnu is that it can deal a lot of damage, okay, and then it doesn't give you like skill point issue. Like Dunhang can deals more damage than Jingnu, like for sure, in my opinion. Like uh with the same stats and such. Like I think Imbibitor Lineage can deals more damage, but the pros with Jinyu, it's also it doesn't take too much skill points, right? If you use the technique and then you use skill, you get enough Syzygy to do a spectral transmigration. I think it's the name, the transformation. I think, right? And then you actually get another turn when you transform, and then you can start attacking already, which is insane in my opinion. It also buffs like your crit rate by a lot, So you can focus on a lot of crit damage build for this Jingliu to maximize its own damage as well. Like that makes her really, really good, as in for DPS, right? Um, he also can multi-target. It's not like ratio where you hit one target, right? Um, it can hit up to 3 units, which is I think the same as Vibrator Lineage, but it's so much easier to use rather than in Vibrator Lineage, because of the skill point. Unless you have, I mean, unless you play like in Vibrator Lineage with Sparkle, then it's a different kind of situation. But other than that, I think Jingliu is much better for everyone. Alright, if you don't pull for Sparkle, Jingliu is such an amazing, comfortable DPS to use, in my opinion, right? Also, it's waifuable. So if you guys like a waifu that deals a lot of damage, and then you like the freezing cold temptation, then you probably want to build one Jingliu, nothing else to be questioned, right? Okay, next is the cons of Jingliu. I cannot believe I'm gonna talk about the cons. But unfortunately, she really needs her light count to deal maximum amount of damage. Like the LC sign is like unavoidable. Like you need to use her LC sign to deal like that satisfying damage or huge damage that I'm talking about. Other than that, I don't think any LC actually can improve her a lot, unfortunately. So you probably need a LC sign for Jingli if you're planning to pull for her. All right. Um. Also, she has the, I think, the passive where when it turns into the spectral transmigration form, right? When it attacks, it actually consumes like 5% HP from all the allies, and then it has like maximum stacks of it. So make sure that your allies, if you're playing with Jingliu, make sure that the allies of the team has good amount of HP to buff Jingliu's damage output, right? So I think that's one of the cons as well that you need to pay attention to. But other than that, I mean, it's it's nothing else. Like she's just that good, right? So please be wise. For your poll, it depends on your account again. All right, let me remind you for that. What you need, like the elemental DPS or the sustain, like which sustain you probably need. Do you really need the sustain or is it skippable? Like if you have problem with MOC, some golden gears and such, like do you need them? Consider them carefully. Do not rush it. Take your time. We still have like a week or so, right? To make sure that we can see what we are going to need. You can also start farming for the materials. Either it's ascension, either it's like for the skills and such, right? So relics as well. Please keep that in mind. All right. And yeah, I think that's it for the 2.1 banner units review, something like that, probably. So yeah, if you guys think this helps, please subscribe. Subscribe. Thank you. All right, subscribe, leave it a like, comment down below. I'll help you out. I personally have Locho and Jingliu, so and I'm satisfied with them. I use them pretty often. If you guys doesn't have any, you can always ask me down below. We're gonna discuss like, oh, are you actually needing this or are you not? And yeah, for Ocuran and Adventuring, this is what I see from the special program, right? We don't have the official kit yet, so I think I will provide more when we get the actual official kit. But other than that, this is what I see from the special program, and I see that it has potential, and we kind of can theory craft like what's happening there. And yeah, I think that's it for now, and I'll see you guys on the next video. Subscribe and like.